Welcome back to the Laylee Madi podcast. Today we have the lovely Dakota Hersey with us from More Than Creative. She is going to be talking with us all about a new take essentially on repurposing your content and making this incredible marketing ecosystem for your business. And I'm really excited about this because I don't know about you guys. Actually, I do know about you guys because we talk about this all the time. My listeners, my friends, my clients, we always talk about how marketing is obviously like one of the biggest parts of our business, but sometimes can be the most overwhelming and where we feel we spend the most wasted time. So Dakota, I am so excited to hear from you on like your entire thought process and what a marketing ecosystem is for a small business owner and how to get the most out of creating content in general and like spending the time on marketing. So I'd love it if you would just introduce yourself to our audience and let our listeners know like why you teach this in the first place.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here. I'm obviously a huge fan of Laylee and I'm a huge fan of her podcast. So to be on here is like just so exciting. I did a free write before we prepped for the podcast just so that way I could try to organize my thoughts because I have a bunch of different directions that we can take it, but I'm excited to see where we go. So just like a little intro, I have spent the last like 10 years building a photography business. So my background is in marketing, but then I kind of used my photography business as I tell people like my sandbox to be able to take all of the things that I love about business and then be able to put them into play. I girl bossed a little too close to the sun and then ended up with a full-time photography business and I loved it. But then I started to feel this pull to come back to the marketing world and to start to help other people. A lot of times I was getting just asked questions about like how I was approaching things and how I would recommend or suggest other people move within their own businesses. And then it kind of reinvigorated or like re-sparked this love that I already had where I say like, photography is my heart, but the marketing agency is my soul. And so I like to try to find a little mix between the two of those. And with the agency thing, I started off feeling like I have grown multiple businesses. So where do I start? How do I serve other people and make it not so, I don't know, make it like easy for people to digest, like what I can help them with. And so what we have started with, and typically the way that we start all of our client relationships is through copywriting for the website, which I think is really great because it gives us a chance to really build a strong foundational messaging. And then also the website is kind of the center. I view it as kind of like the center of your marketing. It is the center of your marketing ecosystem in the sense that like everything is being directed to there. It sits kind of square in the middle of the marketing and the sales process. And then the client experience is on the other end of it. And so what we found when we were doing things for the website is that all of these other questions about marketing strategy would come up because obviously you need to design your website in specific ways for people to interact with it. And if you are a big person who's on Pinterest, or if you have a podcast, or if you're a big blogger, or if you are doing a lot of stuff with short form video, then you're going to arrange your website in different ways and you have to position yourself differently. So of course, from the website, then comes like, what else can we do for you? I'm pretty big on ongoing services because I feel like an issue that we have in the market now is less of a knowledge problem and more of an execution problem. And so we need people to like be helping with what does it actually look like to do this, especially when you bring in the idea of all of the different strategies and how they all play off of each other. It can get really overwhelming. And so I didn't want to be a person who was like, here's how you can build an ecosystem that all plays off of each other. Now go and do it. And then you're just like spinning literally in space. So I want to make sure that we are helping people with that. But that's kind of how we've like gotten to this place of realizing just how interconnected all of the like marketing, sales, and client experience is.
Yeah, I love that you said the actual execution versus the knowledge because I see that so clearly. I think like once you reach a certain point of learning, if you are just learning and you're not executing because you don't know how to do it or like you haven't been able to like get your hands, I'm like hire people like for the
Right.
love. And
Right.
so I love that you have this agency, and I love that you guys have ongoing ways to work with your people. I also think that it's so important. This is like off topic of this episode, but I think it's important for people to think about is when you work with somebody and it goes well, having the opportunity to continue to work with them is
Right.
so amazing. Like, and it's not, it can be kind of rare. Like, I feel like aside from like an OBM or a VA, these like specialized positions, it's nice to be able to have somebody to continually work with who knows you, knows your business, and is able to like get you results.
Right. Well, and I think it's fun because originally when we went into things, like we were just leading with this drive of like, I know how to do it and I have the capacity to be able to help you.
Yeah.
But then this idea of the marketing ecosystem got introduced where I was like, oh, that's what we're building. And if you work with someone who you are partnering with, then it's helpful because like once we do a website and we have all of the messaging from there, then it becomes really easy for us to say, here's where I see the opportunities for blog posts. And then if we're going to do blog posts and we're going to put energy into that, like I'm also really big on making sure that everything that we're doing has multiple purposes. And I don't know if that just comes from like being a seasoned business owner where I have less room to just like, that sounds fun. Let's go try that out. So now it's like anything that I need, anything that I'm doing or I'm spending time on needs to feel like it's going to be beneficial or purposeful in multiple ways. And
Yeah.
then it's been really fun to see how the idea of the ecosystem or building that for our clients has evolved because we can focus on one thing and then as we see other opportunities arise of like, oh, well, what if we connected this to this, or like how do we maximize the whole thing, then it makes it easy for us to like jump from one platform to another.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Let's like dive in. Like tell us more about what does it look like to build a marketing ecosystem, or what does a marketing ecosystem mean to you?
So to me, I feel like it means, well, there's a couple of things that I really love about it. And this is what I kind of like when I'm talking to somebody about like, this is what the dream of what I'm trying to help people build, because I feel like it's what I've built for myself. And a lot of it comes from the fact that a lot of marketing strategies right now feel very much like they are a train that you're constantly having to pour coal into.
Mm.
And I have felt for myself where it's like, oh, yes, like we should post on Instagram, we should do this thing. But then I have seen some of my other friends get to this point. I've gotten to this point myself where it's like you're you're going to always have to be posting though. So like
Yeah.
what are some of the things that we can do that I feel like an ecosystem also has this level of like self-sustaining. And so a lot of it also comes from, I'll like backtrack a little bit. I'm a big blogger. I have never really stopped blogging. I really believe in it. For the photography business, yeah, I mean, I guess I've got 10 years of blogging underneath my belt. And so I have really seen the benefit of all of this work that I put up in the beginning. And then when I've had recent seasons where like I haven't been able to be as present online, or I just simply don't want to be as present online,
Yeah.
I don't feel like that has a major impact on my business because I'm still getting leads. I'm still present in a lot of other places. And I have had seasons of trying out different channels. Like I did YouTube for a little while. I have a podcast with the agency. And so it's been really fun to see, like, even though I have invested in some of those channels and then left them, they still generate. Like I did a video for like how to plan a proposal with a photographer, and I probably get like 2 to 3 proposal leads every week. And
Wow.
that's just like coming from one YouTube video that I'm like, I apparently like I just capitalized, like I found like the one little nugget
Yeah.
of things that people were searching for. And so when I explain to people like this is kind of how I've approached marketing within my own business, and then it feels like a marketing ecosystem because it's not focusing on one channel, you're kind of building a bunch of little things that work off of each other. I also feel like it solves the issue that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are dealing with right now of the burnout, or feeling like I don't want to commit to this thing because then I'm going to be committed to it for the next 10 years or like whatever that looks like. And then like a more on the logistical side of things, like what does the marketing ecosystem look like? I think that it looks like we were kind of talking a little bit about before the podcast, like it's almost like a different way of looking at repurposing your content. And so making sure that like if you have a website that you have a blog, and then on the
Mhm.
blog you're being consistent with that, each blog should result in at least like 2 to 3 Instagram posts or reels. You could make a YouTube video out of it, you could make a podcast out of it, or vice versa. So basically like spending all of the time to repackage your content in different ways for different types of learners,
Yeah.
and also for different people who like their information given to them in different ways.
Yeah, I feel like the conversation around repurposing your content is one, obviously it's extremely important and I understand the concept and I understand why people need it. Like I always say when I'm creating a piece of content, like I want it to work for me on more than one level. However, I am the first to admit that I drop the ball on getting the most out of any piece of content I create because the concept of repurposing content overwhelms me, even though I
Mhm.
should know better. Like, I think this is something that a lot of people maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just like, I don't know if it's just me, but also maybe I'm just really honest about it. I just don't do it. Like I think
Yeah.
about it, I know how to do it, I know logistically what it should look like, but I like the way that you presented it. It makes it feel a little bit more approachable. So I'd love to hear like what are the first steps that somebody should take when it comes to I mean, you can use me as an example or you as an example, but I'd love to hear like an example of what it looks like to actually create that structure of repurposing when you're viewing it as an ecosystem.
Yeah, I think from the first start, so a lot of the people that we work with also are like starting from scratch. So
Yeah.
they don't really, so they're also very overwhelmed by the idea of like they've been showing up on Instagram, like that's kind of like it's not the easy button, but I think that it's like the one it's the most popular button.
Yeah.
And so then a lot of the feedback that we get is like, I hate this. Like, I feel like I'm tethered to my phone. I feel like I'm always having to come up with new ideas. And so, the way that we have kind of approached each person's strategy is more from like how can we get in and remove the roadblocks to make this easy? Because it should be easy. It should take effort, but it shouldn't feel like you are like, I don't know, pulling teeth.
Yeah.
And so each strategy, I feel like always starts off with what are the goals? So like what is the thing that's going to be able to get us to the goal the fastest, but then also what are you going to enjoy doing the most? Because there's sometimes where people will come and they're like, well, I need leads now. Like I need money now. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to make that happen pretty quickly. If you want to invest in it, then you can do some type of ad strategy. If you want to hit it really hard, I mean, you could post on TikTok 5 times a day and like that would be perfectly fine. But both of those things, then you like run into the issue of like the effort of like, do I really want to have to do that? So I feel like we have to find this intersection between like what feels somewhat effortless to you. And I think that it's been really fun to see how that's been different for different people. Like showing up and doing video content where I'm talking on camera doesn't feel difficult for me. It feels way easier. Where
Mhm.
there's other people that are like, well, writing something feels really easy, or getting on and doing like long form talking feels really easy. And so I think that first we have to overcome the like objection or like what is it? The negative beliefs of yourself of like, well, none of it's easy. There is
Yeah.
something within it that feels natural. You wouldn't be a business owner if you didn't like enjoy some part of this experience.
Right.
So we need to find the thing that like feels relatively natural. And then I think you focus on that one area, you build the system around it. And then the natural next step, I feel like starts to kind of reveal itself. So I don't think that like in the beginning, I don't know if people like necessarily set out to build a marketing ecosystem. I think it's something that kind of has to evolve. I don't know if that is going to feel positive or negative to hear on the other end of like having to do it yourself. But to me, I feel like it feels less stressful because it's like this quarter we're going to focus on blogging,
Yeah.
and we're going to do all of our blog posts, and we're going to get really good and really comfortable at writing them. And then at the end of the quarter we're going to go, okay, so now when we pick out our blog posts, like let's try to add making a reel for each blog post out of that. And then it kind of starts to like naturally evolve on itself instead of putting the pressure of like, I'm going to create this piece of content and how do I squeeze it for every single thing that it's worth and put it on all of these different channels. I think that it's more sustainable and easier to build if it feels like it's something that's like, once you get this section over here that is kind of sustaining and feeding itself, then you can allow the energy from that to then grow and sustain another area. And then eventually you'll have something that all works together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. I think the concept, it reminds me of did you ever read Atomic Habits?
No, but I feel like it's kind of like a mix of I've obviously been very therapized. So there's like part of like how do you introduce things within your life to be a better person and then
Yeah.
kind of taking some of those concepts.
Yeah, no, I love it. I feel like that to me is the least overwhelming way and the way that things actually get done is like
Right.
you wait till one thing is going well and then you add a little something extra. And I think as you were saying that, I was realizing, oh, maybe that's why everything has been so difficult for me to, I go from like, okay, well, I have a podcast episode. So like from this podcast episode, I should be pulling a blog post, multiple Instagram reels, carousels, pull quotes, like newsletter content, and I actually do all those things now. But
Yeah.
in the beginning, I wasn't doing all five of those things, and I'm probably leaving other stuff on the like at this point, I'm like the next step for me maybe should be adding in like some TikTok clips, like the same
Yeah.
repurposing those reels onto TikTok and trying a new platform. Recently, my podcast producer has put us on YouTube. So we are on YouTube now. I
Hmm.
don't touch that. I don't even know. Like I actually probably have like a YouTube subscriber. Like I don't even know how that's going because I'm not at the point to like give it its focus now. So
Right.
I love this example and I love the permission that like it's going to take some time to evolve. Let's say someone has their primary business, but now they're adding in education or they're launching a new course or what have you, and they want to start incorporating that into their marketing and making each piece of content work for them. What's like an easy ad that they could do to see a result with or a
Mm.
result from?
Well, and it's hard because like the answer for me is always going to be like it depends. Because I think too, and that's where
No,
it's
but
like,
that's honest. Like I love that because that's, I mean, it is true. It does depend. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, like, even what you said with now, like you started all of the things when you started your podcast and you had specific ways that like, I feel like people naturally start to gravitate towards the things that feel easier for them. And then you do get to a certain point where it makes sense to pass it off or bring somebody on because I also don't think that like, when you get to a certain point, a marketing ecosystem can't be sustained just by yourself because it starts to get like, I don't know, like there's just like a lot of different areas. And that's been one of the things that's been kind of fun as the agency like perspective is that
Mhm.
I can kind of come in with like a marketing background and a little bit like I'm not as deep in the work as them, so I can kind of see things from a higher level. I love really trying to get people to understand like what is the actual thing that we are getting out of this. And like
Yeah.
the way that I work is like, okay, the newsletter might be the natural next step because you went to a conference and you heard someone say like you should do a newsletter. And I have one of my clients that came back, same scenario. She was like, this is what we're doing. And I pushed her really hard where I was like, yes, that's a good strategy. Why do you want to do it though? What are you expecting out of it? And because the other thing was is that I didn't want to put all of this effort into building this out and then her be like, "Well, I'm not making any money from it." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Well, that's not really like what we were you can't that's not realistic expectations for what the effort that you're going to be putting into this." So like,
Mhm.
let's talk about all of the different things that could come from implementing this within your business and like is all of those things together worth it to you and is that going to be like accurate for it. And so then we agreed like okay, yes, we wanted she wanted the newsletter because she realized from her whole perspective of like marketing, sales to client experience, she was missing the whole of like a connection point with people that she had already booked. She's a wedding planner, so like there's a year between when they book to when they actually like have their stuff executed on. And so she was like, I like the idea of a newsletter to be something that is providing a resource to people that we've already booked, but then also it could be something that like operates as an additional resource for leads. And then I said, okay, now let's talk about how we can make it even bigger. The newsletter is going to be a place where we put all of the content that we've been working on to make sure that we've got another way to share it. It's going to be a way that we build into the individual brand of each of the team members so that that way all of the people that are working with their individual wedding planners, we're going to have a section where we highlight all of the weddings for that month so that current clients can see their name written, and then it's kind of like this delight factor. And so then that's where it's kind of fun for me to have this really collaborative process where like you get an idea, it feels really congruous with what you're doing within your business. We ping it over to me to make sure that it works with the actual goals and the strategy and like what you can actually expect out of it. And then we kind of can like figure out like how do we sneak in a little bit of ways there to get almost like those secondary goals hit.
Mm. Yeah, I love that process. I think it's super helpful to hear like the examples too of where like the outcome the person was hoping to achieve and where
Mm-hmm.
they were missing the mark. Like I love that. I think for me, as you were talking, I thought of the whole purpose behind the podcast for me is to like have a connection point with people that I already work with or who it's just like a nice way for me to connect with my audience, to talk with them, and to feel like I'm having a conversation with them. Whereas I have such limited time to do one-on-one stuff. So
Yeah.
unless you're in my mastermind or in the membership, there's no real chance to like speak with me one-on-one because there's one of me and a lot of my clients and students. And so I use that as like a marketing channel for my existing audience.
Yeah.
But then how do I guess then that kind of could lead me to the question of, let's say you have a marketing channel that takes care of your current people really well, but you want to work on lead generation. What would
Mm-hmm.
somebody maybe do next in a marketing, like in repurposing or in like your version of the ecosystem?
Yeah, well, and I think actually that's like the perfect example because a podcast I would feel like is like a foundational and it's an owned marketing channel, owned
Yeah.
being that it's something that you are creating your own audience that you're bringing in. Anytime we're doing any type of strategy, I like to try to make sure that we're having a mix of owned content, but then also like public content. So we're going
Yeah.
to a place where there's already an audience being gathered. There's a give and take, pros and cons to both places. I think that that's where the ecosystem makes sense because you're incorporating all of those different things. So for you or somebody that has a podcast that's like, okay, the reason I have the podcast is to more serve on the client experience side of things. I think that makes sense for a podcast because it doesn't work great as a lead generation platform because of the fact that like it it's on a platform that like Spotify and stuff isn't going to actively be marketing you.
No, unless you're like a
You're having to
celebrity,
like
you're not
right.
getting random lead gen unless your podcast miraculously takes off, you know?
Right, right. Like
Yeah.
you have to be doing something to get people to pay attention to you, where like everybody can hate on the Instagram algorithm as much as they want, but like it really does help because it really is doing the work for us of like pushing out our stuff to
Yeah.
other people without us having to like work so hard for it. But yeah, that's where like even with our own podcast, I've really tried to push on the video side of things and like we should do reels. Reels are not for engaging with your current audience. They are cold. It's for a cold audience. And so like you also have to think about because you know it's a cold audience if you're going to try to like repurpose your podcast from that perspective like you're probably going to share different things because
Yeah.
you're going to share like more stuff that's like shows how funny you are or shows that like it's something that's like super shareable or shows that like it's piquing interest rather than sharing the part of your podcast that's like really getting into the meat of like the hyper specific thing that your audience really cares about.
Yeah.
So, because I see that too, where like people will want to do reels, and then I'm like, we're missing the mark completely because you're not totally considering like what each platform's was built for and like
Mhm.
what that type of audience and like what that type of piece of content is going to work for. And so that's also where I think that having somebody that like an agency or like somebody that understands that's kind of the role that we're trying to fill somebody that is got their hands in all of these different cookie jars in all of these different industries for clients, like even one of our core values of More Than Creative is cross-pollination. And because I think that you can learn a lot from, well, we've got a wedding planner that's doing over here, but we did a website and some stuff for a custom home builder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're completely different industries, but like ultimately you could like learn from each other of what each other is doing, because if you take from one industry, I mean, that's how everything grows. Like the best
Yeah.
business owners are pulling from industries that are not their own.
Yeah. Oh, a thousand percent agree on that. Like, I feel like the biggest things that have moved my business forward are things I'm pulling from previous careers in other
Hmm.
industries. And people are like, wow, what did like a groundbreaking idea? And I'm like, oh no, this has been done for like
Right.
ages
Just
in
like
the
your
industry I
bubble
work.
doesn't know about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that you brought that up. And that's why I feel like I have like, everybody has like their little taglines. I feel like one of my frequently said things is like, don't discredit your previous experience because,
Mm.
and same kind of concept of like, don't just like dismiss what other industries are doing or what other, I love that. And I like that you call it cross-pollination. That's really cute.
Yeah, it's like little bees. We're just like, we're going, well, because also it's like, I like the idea of viewing it as cross-pollination too, because it's not stealing. It's like,
Mm.
I'm watching what these people are doing over here, analyzing why it's working with that specific audience. And then you
Yeah.
just like take those concepts and then plug them into how that would work within your industry. And then I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, like that's how it's supposed to work. Like even
Yeah.
in nature.
Yeah, no, I love that. I have so many marketing questions. Like, I just feel like we could talk about this all day long, but the last thing I really want I guess, like your guidance on for our listeners and even for myself is what mistakes are you seeing people make right now when it comes to repurposing content or trying to repurpose content when it comes to marketing something, whether it be like their business as a whole or a specific offer?
Okay, really good question. My biggest frustration is, so there's two different seasons. Like there's the season of I'm introducing something new to my business and I am going to like just focus on this like one channel or one platform. When you get to a point where you do want to start repurposing it, I like the repurposing needs to be thought about before you ever create it. And that is where I think like having an outside person come in helps you be a little bit more efficient, because I like that's always where I'm thinking of it. Where I feel like if you try to jump too much into it, or if you like never pull yourself out, if you don't have the ability to like look at your marketing from like a high level, then you
Yeah.
get to the point where like I recorded a podcast episode. Now what do I do? Where it's like if you knew that you were going into it saying, okay, the next thing that I'm going to really focus on is trying to have a video component. And then I want to make sure that I'm also attacking it from like a personal component. So we're going to have the newsletter, and you would move differently and your content looks different if you know that you have a plan before you go in and start to create. And so that's where I really find myself pushing my clients, where like in the beginning it's very simple, we're gonna try to like get ourselves, it's like going to the gym, like we're just gonna try to like build up our stamina and get to where we can go. And then when I know that we have like we're all there, we're all on the same level, I know the business, then that's when I start to really push hard as far as like, okay, we know that we have, for the still the wedding planner example, we know that we have a major wedding coming up that we are going to want to use in our portfolio. So what do we need to do in order to maximize this scenario? And so like for her, we know that we're going to use it as a portfolio page on her website. We know we're going to do a blog post recap, so we're going to get photos of it. We made sure to tell the photographer that we were going to be blogging it, so we needed a lot of like specific detail photos. I went on the actual wedding day and I filmed behind the scenes content for
Mm,
them. A
I love
lot
that.
of stuff that is like could do like a day in my life vlog, but then I brought the mini mics so that way I was asking them questions, and then that was going to be reels that could then point back to the blog post. And so that's where like I think that it's less of a mistake and more of like a missed opportunity,
Mm,
I guess, for where if you do get to the point where like you do have your systems under control and you're not fumbling with like what camera do I use or like how do I talk about this, and you are at the point where you can start to like really maximize that I think the mistake is not considering it before you create something.
Okay, that makes so much sense. And I just feel like it sounds like the biggest mistake would be like not hiring you.
Maybe.
I was not paid to say this. I am not an affiliate. I am not,
But I love it. I love
but
it. Well,
this
and
is
that's
not
where
an
I think
ad.
it's like marketing, like that's where I've been kind of like pushing up clients and stuff too. It's like marketing should be fun. Like this whole
Yeah.
thing is a giant playground that we should like get to the point where we're trying to make certain things work. And then I kind of almost approach it from like a little bit of like a playful standpoint where like there's no right or wrong answers. It's just a matter of like what feels fun or what feels like easy so that that way we can avoid burnout, and then what is going to give us the biggest bang for our buck and our biggest investment, and then everything else is kind of like let's just like get a bunch of pots cooking and then see which one feels like it's going to be generating the most for us, and then we can kind of start to focus on that one a little bit more, and then when it feels like it's at a good place, like let's pay attention to a different pot and like start cooking a different part of the meal, so that that way you're kind of, I don't know, I feel like also from like a therapy perspective, if you take the pressure off of one thing performing and you've got a bunch of things moving, then it just feels like overall less of a stressful experience.
Yeah, I feel like for me, this conversation has given me kind of like two things that I know I'm going to focus on. One is I love this mindset shift you just shared about this should be fun and like, let's try to make it fun and try to take the pressure off. And two is that it's okay to wait until something is working the way you want it to
Yeah.
before you move on to the next step. And I think both of those things just from this conversation alone are already filling me with a lot of hope that
Hmm.
like it's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
got
which
this.
is funny because I say like, we all go into our, especially if you provide a service, like we go into it being like, this is the service that we provide. And then there's always this other result on the other end that
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I didn't realize that like that's actually the value that I'm bringing. And what I found for us is like, yes, we do marketing. Yes, our job is to like get results and get leads and help grow the business. But a lot of what we do is just removing roadblocks. And
Yeah.
so all of our services are or contracts like we do on a quarterly basis, and so
Yeah.
every quarter we start off with like we have things that we're maintaining, but a lot of it is like what is keeping you from like being able to move forward, like why are you
Mhm.
not posting on Instagram, and then like really trying to understand, and for every person and honestly every quarter it's different. Sometimes it's that you
Yeah.
don't have the content, sometimes it's that you don't know what to post. Like sometimes it's that you're overwhelmed with because you don't know how to respond to the leads, or you're embarrassed about what your website looks like. So you don't want to draw any attention to it. And then
Mm.
it's like, how can we tackle each one of those things as like its own individual project so that we're like chipping away at it?
Oh, that makes so much sense to me. I am like over here being like, when can I hire more than creative? That sounds so, I'm not even being sarcastic. There's just like so much to it that I know so many of us relate to. So thank you for sharing all of this. I like to end my episodes on the Layli Amadi podcast. So if you used to listen to So Here's the Thing, I would always end with like an unpopular opinion, but I
Uh,
realized we're moving on. We're
everyone has
past that.
unpopular opinions.
We're mo- my life is an unpopular opinion. It's
Right, right.
we're what else? I like what else
Same.
can I say? But I like to end with some rapid fire questions if you're down.
Love.
Okay, so I'm just gonna jump in. What is and some of them are personal and some of them are it's just like a random mix. What is a business tool that you can't live without?
Um, oh, Google Suite.
Ooh, that is a good one because it's accurate. Same. Okay,
Yeah.
finish this sentence. Success feels like.
Freedom.
Ooh, love
Hmm.
that. Okay, marketing question, copy or visuals? What's more important to get right first?
Copy. Yeah, copy dictates design. A designer will be a better designer if they have the direction and the constraints of copy.
True, my designer really, really, really hates when people don't come with their copy or expect her to have copy. She's like, I don't know what you're doing.
Yep, those are
Um,
two different jobs.
what is a marketing, because this is a marketing episode, what is a marketing trend you wish would disappear?
Oh, I honestly, hot take, I don't like trending like video reels. Like I hate trending sounds, and I also hate when they are a reel that is just photos. I think that it is lazy
Mm.
and it is causing too much noise.
I want to end there, but I have one more that I really do want to. Okay. What is your favorite call to action phrase that always converts?
Oh, oh, that's a good one. I don't know if I have one.
Okay, you have to think about it and bring it back if you find one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Cause yeah, I'm also like, there's so much with this
There's so
that
many.
see, I get too deep with it
There's
because
so
I'm
many.
like the whole
You're like,
message,
this is too complicated of a
yeah,
question.
the whole
Okay.
content.
Okay, we'll end on
There
another
is no easy
one.
button. My hot take is that there isn't one.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, and then what is one marketing tool you tell everyone to try?
Less of a marketing tool and more of just like I mean, I use it for all of marketing. I'm just a Canva girl.
Mhm.
And recently I use CapCut to edit my videos, but I have been going into Canva to try to like really, again, like I feel good about the videos that I've made. And so now I'm pushing them to the next level. And so Canva is really great for like making them more visually interesting to try to get
Mhm.
some more umph out of them.
Okay, I see you sneaking in that like tidbit of I'm happy with the way things are going, so now
Yes.
I'm gonna add
Well,
one more
right,
thing.
right. No, I listen, I practice what I preach. I like also firmly believe if you hire someone who's like doing stuff for you, then they need to be doing it well for themselves. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with that. You know I do. Well, thank you so much. So where can people connect with you and learn more about More Than Creative?
So we are obviously on Instagram, morethancreative.co. We also have a podcast. My brother works with me,
I
which
love
is a really
that.
fun dynamic. And so our podcast is a little bit more of we treat it as kind of like the break room conversation. If you worked at an office, it's
Oh, I
what
love
you would
that.
hear over like the lunch table. So less of like a super structured topics and more of us just like gabbing about things. But
Mhm.
I tend to be long-winded. So I feel like the podcast is the best way to get into my brain and understand the way I think about things so that I'm
Yeah.
not always answering with it depends. And then, yeah, those right now are the two main platforms that we're focusing on. So that's where you can find me.
Thank you. This was so, so good. And I so appreciate you sharing your expertise. You're the best.
No, thank you for asking me to come on. This is so exciting.
I love
And
it.
then, yeah, if there also, I love follow-up questions and like really specific like examples. And I think each business is very individual. So it's hard to give broad statements. So
Yeah.
also find me in the DMs, send me a voice message. Like I'm happy to help brainstorm with you.
Oh, thank you. That's so generous. Yeah, y'all take her up on it 'cause she's the best. And make sure to check out the show notes. We'll have everything linked for you guys there, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Laylee Amati podcast. If you found value in today's episode, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with a friend who's on their journey to becoming an industry educator or speaker. Want more support as you grow? Head to layleeamati.com for free resources and more information on how we can work together. Until next time, keep showing up, keep sharing your voice, and keep leading with purpose.